Bihari. Gopijanna Ballabha Girivaradhari. Yashodhanana Vrajajanna Ranjana. Yashodhanandana Vrajajanna Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivajaka Acharya Ashtatara Sata Sri Shrimad Chaitanya Goswami Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivajaka Acharya Ashtatara Sata Sri Shrimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anand Koti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Samapeta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're going to continue with Vidura's talks with Maitreya and also try to speak about the different some of the special features of today being Ras Purnima. So, we'll begin with this text 21, correct? Let me see. These glasses, I think, a bit better. Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Sammata Sanugasya Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Madishad Bhagavan Vrajan Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Sammata Sanugasya Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Madishad Bhagavan Vrajan. Others? Ladies? Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Samatta Sanugasya Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Madishad Bhagavan Vrajan. Bhavan, your good self. Bhagavataha, of the personality of Godhead. Nityam, eternal. Samataha, recognized. Sa anugasya, one of the associates. Ha, have been. Yasya, of whom. Jnana, knowledge. Upadeshaya, for instructing. Ma, unto me. Adishat, so ordered. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Vrajan, while returning to his abode. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Your good self is one of the eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for whose sake the Lord, while going back to his abode, left instructions with me. Purport. Yamaraj, the great controller of life after death, decides the living entities' destinies in their next lives. He is surely among the most confidential representatives of the Lord. Such confidential posts are offered to great devotees of the Lord who are as good as his eternal associates in the spiritual sky. And because Vidura happened to be among them, the Lord, while returning to Vaikuntha, left instructions for Vidura with Maitreya Muni. Generally, the eternal associates of the Lord in the spiritual sky do not come to the material world. Sometimes they come, however, by the order of the Lord. not to hold any administrative post, but to associate with the Lord in person, or to propagate the message of God in human society. Such empowered representatives are called Shaktyavesha avatars, or incarnations invested with transcendental power of attorney. Hare Krishna. Om Agyanatamanandasya Gyananjana Shalkaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangalangayate Gidim Tad Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada in this verse introduces or speaks about the Shaktyavesha avatars in legal terms. So they're invested with the transcendental power of attorney. So perhaps some of you may not be familiar with this term, power of attorney. I figured maybe you didn't. Never heard of it, yes. Never heard of it, never heard of it. Yeah, you've heard of it, okay. You, of course, have heard of it. But I've had to execute a power of attorney a few times. Basically, power of attorney refers to a legal document in which a person gives all or limited. When you execute a power of attorney, you have a choice to give, and you have to specify. This power of attorney is valid for this. So, for example, very often this is used in real estate transactions, because you may not be present, you may not be able to perform a sale, to sell something. So you give power of attorney to someone that you trust, who then can sign the documents and execute the sale exactly as if you were doing it. It has all legal standing as if you were physically present. That's power of attorney. So I've had to do it a few times for different things. So here we have a transcendental power of attorney, meaning that those individuals, those jivas, again, when in power of attorney, it is not that the individual awarded the power of attorney is actually an attorney. Attorney refers to a lawyer, a person with a degree in practicing law. So that person may not be a lawyer, and it is certainly not the person who they're acting on behalf of. They're their own individual selves. So similarly, the jivas, you, I, different personalities, with the appropriate qualifications, can be invested with the full Shakti. That's why they're called Shaktyavesha, that they embody the energy of Krishna. They're not Krishna. They're not Bhagavan. But they have the full power to act on his behalf. So in this verse, it appears it's not quite clear if Srila Prabhupada is saying that Vidura was such a Shaktyavesha avatar. He is speaking perhaps generally about the principle, because he also, prior to mentioning this Shaktyavesha avatar principle, he describes how the eternal associates generally do not come to the material world. But then he says that such confidential posts are offered to great devotees of the Lord. So here he's talking about the post of Yamaraj. And Vidura, as we've understood from the previous verse, is actually Yamaraj on vacation, so to speak. He's taken a leave of absence by circumstances, but he has, in some accounts, I don't know the exact references, his service as Yamaraj has been taken over during this period of time. And he is thus freed from that burden in order to, what is described here, his real purpose, not to hold any administrative post, but to associate with the Lord in person or to propagate the message of God. This term of Shaktivesh avatar has been used for, by Srila Prabhupada, even for Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus Christ has been described as a Shaktivesha avatar of Krishna. Even our own Srila Prabhupada has been described by some. We won't get into that because Srila Prabhupada himself would not consider such terms. But still, we may perceive in that way. To carry the message of God, to carry the message, that is the special energy. And that message is the same. It acts the same. The energy is the same in these individuals. So here we get some understanding of the position of Vidura. And Maitreya is relating this in the context of him now going to give instructions. So this sets up a sort of interesting dynamic. Here you have an individual who Maitreya is recognizing to be an eternal associate of Krishna. Although this is not always the case with those who assume the positions of Yamaraj or various devatas, but in this case, at least Maitreya is recognizing him to be Krishna's eternal associate. And yet, he's saying that now I have a service to instruct you. So this interesting dynamic gets set up where we haven't heard that Maitreya is an eternal associate of Krishna, but who knows? I don't know, actually. I haven't studied well enough to know, Maitreya, who is he? Who is anyone? Today, we are also observing the appearance of is it the appearance or disappearance? Appearance of Bhugarba Goswami. Now, Bhugarba Goswami is also described as an eternal associate. Prema Manjari is his identity in Krishna Lila. According to the, I guess it's Gauraganu Deepika or Bhakti Ratnakar, probably Bhakti Ratnakar, is described because the Bhakti Ratnakar identifies so many of Gauranga's associates as being eternal souls. Well, everyone is eternal soul, but as being eternal associates who have descended to participate in Gauranga's Leela. Bhugarba Goswami appears from, and then their identities are revealed by some mystic process and by signs. And in this case, Bhugarba Goswami is revealed to be that Prema Manjari, and we'll talk about Manjaris a little later. But he is especially noted. It's very interesting that Bhugarba Goswami's position in Gauranga's Leela is as the intimate friend of Lokanath Goswami. We don't actually hear that much about Bhugarbha Goswami's activities outside of his relationship with his dear friend Lokanath Goswami. There we find how Bhugarbha Goswami had been, first of all, he was initiated by Gadadhar Pandit, but he was very close to Lokanath Maharaj, Lokanath Goswami, who was directly initiated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they both met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip. But Lokanath was ordered to go to Vrindavan. And Bhugarbha went with him. Then we hear how Lokanath heard that Mahaprabhu had journeyed to South India, and he got this word. So he went. He was reported to be in the vicinity of what we now known as Pune. I don't know if it was known as that time. I think that was what it was. And so they proceeded to find him. When they got there, they found, no, he'd left. He'd gone to Vrindavan. And so they went back, or maybe to Varanasi. Yeah, no, they went back to, they went back to Vrindavan. And then they heard that, no, he'd already left Vrindavan and he'd gone to Prayag. So they were about to go, and then Mahaprabhu appears in a dream to Lokanath Goswami and says, stop this running around. Just stay put. You have your service there. So this Bhugarbha Goswami is a very dear, dear associate of the Lord, Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and particularly maintained this close friendship with Lokanath. And his samadhi is there, as I recall, in the courtyard of Radha Damodar. So that gives you an indication of his prominence. But we don't know that much about him. But we hear that he was, or is, a manjari. And that brings us to the Gopis and the Rasa Dance. Manjari, as you all know, refers to those prepubescent girls who assist, who participate in the conjugal madhurya loving affairs of Radha and Krishna, Krishna and the Gopis. They themselves do not have the same feelings that the Gopis have for Krishna. The Gopis experience something that for us is very difficult to understand. They lust for Krishna. They feel lusty desire. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the purport to, which verse is this? 5:25-4. We find again the princesses being very attracted to Lord Krishna. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, when males and females touch each other's bodies, their lusty desires naturally awaken. It appears from this verse that there are similar sensations in spiritual bodies. Both Lord Ananta and the women giving him pleasure had spiritual bodies. Thus, all sensations originally exist in the spiritual body. This is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadhyasya Yataha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has commented in this connection that the word Adi means Adi Ras, the original lusty feeling, which is born from the Supreme. However, spiritual lust and material lust are as completely different as gold and iron. As gold and iron. Gold and iron are both metals, but you won't get very far in this world with a hoard of iron as opposed to take a brick of gold and put it next to a brick of iron. They may weigh the same. They may both be metals, but the value is vastly different. This is the mystery of the lusty feelings of the Gopis. Because we don't have that to compare. We only have that material lusty desire. We have that experience. And so when we see these affairs of Krishna and the Gopis, when we read and hear about these things, it's on the surface, the touch, the feel, the physicalness of it appears to be the same, but it is not. It's not at all the same. And if we jump to it, if we hear about it without the right attitude, then we can make mistakes and we can compare and we can think, this is, I could also have this Krishna as my lover. Ooh. And we have people that make a life of this. They're called the Prakrita Sahajias, who take this relationship of Krishna and Radha as if it were mundane, as something that they could imitate, as something that they could have themselves. They think that simply by hearing about these affairs, they will also enjoy them. But that's not the case. Here, Prabhupada says, one who is very highly elevated in spiritual realization, one who is very highly elevated in spiritual realization can understand the lusty feelings exchanged between Radha and Krishna, or between Krishna and the damsels of Vraja, the Gopis. Today is the celebration of that transcendental, loving affair, the Rasa Dance. Therefore, unless one is very experienced and advanced in spiritual realization, he is forbidden to discuss the lusty feelings of Krishna and the Gopis. However, if one is a sincere and pure devotee, the material lust in his heart is completely vanquished as he discusses the lusty feelings between the Gopis and Krishna, and he makes quick progress in spiritual life. We can all hope for that day, at least maybe some of you are there already, where we have that sincerity and purity, that when we hear about the loving affairs between Radha and Krishna in detail, we hear about their physical contact. We hear about how they enjoyed. We won't have even a glimmer of material lust in our hearts, but appreciate the transcendental quality, the quality of spiritual love that infuses these affairs. What's the difference? What makes the difference between our lusty arena and the so-called lusty relationship between the gopis and Krishna? Let's begin by hearing the pastime just a little bit to understand this. We begin with Krishna's observation of the beauty of the night. His observation of this is such a wonderful time. Let us enjoy. Now Krishna, we know. Krishna is the source of all enjoy. He is the enjoyer. He is the supreme enjoyer. For him, enjoyment is what he does. And his enjoyment is to give enjoyment. So, he doesn't say, okay, I'll enjoy. I'm going to wander about this beautiful night and I'll just take it in. I said, let me call the gopis. Let me call them. Let us enjoy together this beautiful night. So he simply plays his flute. That flute sound enters the ears of each of the gopis in their households. And the Bhagavatam describes this. The gopis, the Rasa Leela is described in 5 chapters. I believe, right? 5 chapters. So the first chapter is Krishna's attracting the gopis. And in that chapter we find the first indication of the difference. Here are chaste ladies, highest quality, but hearing Krishna's flute, hearing his call, they abandon everything. It's described that they leave the pots cooking on the stove. They are putting on their makeup and just drop it. They put, bangles on their feet, and they're just mad. They're totally mad. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And their madness is Krishna's calling. Krishna's calling me to serve. Not calling me to enjoy. Calling me to serve. To serve him. To give him pleasure in this wonderful night. That's what they're feeling. The call for service. Their lust is for service. Their lust is to love. Not for the sensations that come from contact with Krishna. They will have that contact. They will have it. And they desire it, but not for the sensation that it gives, as we do. We desire so many things in this world for the sensations that they give us. The food gives us a sensation of taste. The eyes give us a sensation of beauty. Ears of beautiful music. We want these sensations. We want these feelings. We want to enjoy them. However we get them. And as our lust for such sensations grows, we can do anything. Not like the gopis, who were ready to do anything, but we do also anything to beg, borrow, steal, get ghee, right? Or find, I mean, I don't want to get into detail about the things that lust can produce. Krishna describes that lust as being the root of all sin. That our sinful activity is rooted in the lust for that sensation, that desire to experience those sensations. But these gopis, they were not lusting for the sensation. They were lusting to serve. And they ran to him. And Krishna, to bring out their love even more, he began to play with them and tell them to go home. And in this way, and we don't have time to get into the entire Rasa Leela, but we'll just go briefly through how Krishna played with them with words to intensify their feeling of desire to serve, to give him pleasure. They wanted to give him pleasure. And ultimately, he agrees. Yes, let's enjoy the night. And just as they're feeling now, we can have our desire to serve Krishna, to be with, to fan him, to touch him, to offer him our bodies. To offer him our bodies. He disappears. He just disappears. He was there. He's gone. Krishna's gone. Here we are, the darkness of this forest. And our protector, our Lord has disappeared. From here we see the gopis begin to search for Krishna. In their search for Krishna, they become mad with their love. Thinking of Krishna, they begin to enact his pastimes, even think, I am Krishna. They become mad with their absorption in Krishna. And they search and they search. They find evidence that Krishna has been here, he's been there. They see that another set of footprints and they think, oh, Shri Radha is with him. And then they see Shri Radha. Krishna's disappeared. And together they sing. Together they simply sit and sing. They sing, they do kirtan for Krishna. And then Krishna returns. And then the dance begins. Who is it? Nietzsche said, I cannot believe in a God who does not dance. I think our God, Kalakanta, has written a treaty. What's it called? The God who dances? Something like that. Krishna. The expert, the Natabara. we have our Natabara Gauranga. Nata, the emperor of dance. He dances in such a way that each gopi sees Krishna with her. It's described that Krishna situates himself between each gopi, except with Radha. There he's one with her. But all the gopis, they simply see Krishna dancing with me. And they offer him pleasure in so many different ways, which are all described in the 10th canto. And ultimately, the dance comes to the banks of the Jamuna River, and they enter the river itself, and they continue their play. And all of this goes on for millions of years. The night of Brahma. How much is that? Billions of years. This is the Rasa Dance. The ultimate expression of Krishna's 4.3 billion years. The ultimate expression of loving exchange between Krishna and his Gopis. His Gopis, who are actually expansions of him, of his internal potency, Sri Radha. There are some jivas like us who are able to participate in there's two different rasa dances. There's the, I'm trying to remember the names. There's like the community one where everyone's there, including the personified Vedas. It's described that the sages of the Dandakaranya forest, the sages who lived with Sri Ram and felt that same desire. How can I serve Sri Ram in this mood of offering myself for his pleasure? But of course they couldn't do that to Sri Ram. First of all, Sita is there. Secondly, they're sages. They're not... So they get to take birth in Vraj, as Gopis. So there are others who get to come and take part, in addition to Krishna's eternal, internal energy in the form of the Gopis, the expansions of Srimati Radharani. In the midst of this narration of the Rasa Leela, Maharaj Parikshit asks, because here he's surrounded by sages, and he's kind of looking around. It's described he's looking around and looking at the faces of all the, and Sukadeva is beginning to describe Krishna's, loving affairs, and he's thinking, I better help this. I'm going to ask a question to clear the air a little bit here. So he asks, so how could these girls, their minds caught up in the waves of the modes of nature? Because apparently, superficially, this is what appears, free themselves from material attachment. See, he begins, the Gopis knew Krishna only as their lover, not as the supreme absolute truth. They only, as we've heard, they did not see Krishna as God. They saw him as their lover. They saw him as that extraordinary personality to whom their hearts, their lives, everything belonged to him. That's all they thought of, was how to serve him, how to give him pleasure, how to be with him for that purpose. So King Parikshit asked this because the king noticed the expressions on the faces of some of the more materialistic persons present there and realized the doubt lurking in their hearts. And then Sukadeva explains. He explains how the real center of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord. This is the Rasa Dance. Krishna is in the center. The meaning of the Rasa Dance is Krishna is in the center and everything is dancing around. He's dancing with everything and everything is dancing with him, but he is the only center. He is the only center, not as in our lusty affairs where we are the centers. And the other person that we lust at is also the center, and we're all considering ourselves centers, and all we do is run into trouble. Because if everyone thinks they're the center, then there's obviously going to be conflict. It has to be. It has to be like that. But here there's no conflict. This is from the Ishopanishad. Where Krishna describes, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes how the Supreme Lord is the real center of all enjoyment. That is how we can understand here. This is, Srila Prabhupada says, the real center of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord, who is the center of the sublime and spiritual Rasa Dance. We are all meant to join Him and enjoy life with one transcendental interest and without any clash. That is the highest platform of spiritual interest. And as soon as one realizes this perfect form of oneness, this is the perfect form of the oneness that various yogis and sages aspire for. When we realize this perfect form of oneness, there can be no question of illusion, moha, or lamentation, shoka. The real center of enjoyment is Krishna. That is the Rasa Dance. So, we'll end here. I'm not going to try to speak about Tulsi, Shaligram, marriage. First of all, I don't know anything about it. I don't understand it. Anyway, it's totally beyond me, and maybe somebody else will speak about it. I don't understand it at all. Hare Krishna. It's 9 o'clock, but if there's some questions or comments that, Maharaj, do you have anything you'd like to add? There are, yeah. The Rasa, it's going on always. I think we could end with one additional note, which I was trying to find the reference for, but I've heard, and I would love to hear a reference in Srila Prabhupada's or any of our acharyas that describes how the Rasa Dance continues in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela in the form of Sankirtan. That when Sankirtan takes place, pure prema Sankirtan, Krishna is in the center, the dancing is there, Krishna is with everyone in the form of his holy names. That this is also an expression of Rasa Dance. That we can aspire for. To associate with Krishna in dance in the form of his holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Yes, okay, Chaitanya Bhagavat. So the Srivasa's house, where the Prem Kirtan, all pure devotees, no tinge of any material vision. That is the pure Rasa Dance. Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai, Hare Krishna.